This video is about the geography of Rome and the start of the Roman Republic. This is a satellite image of Italy. Italy is where the Roman Empire was centered. As you can see, it's a peninsula, just like ancient Greece, which means it has water on three sides. It also has a lot of coastline that goes along with the fact that it's a peninsula. And if you look on the map, you can see some dark green areas. And these dark green areas represent places of higher elevation, specifically mountains. There are two important mountain ranges in Italy. The Italian Peninsula is in southern Europe. It's a narrow boot-shaped peninsula that reaches into the middle of the Mediterranean Sea. It has rich soil and mild, moist climate. About 75% of the peninsula is covered in either mountains or foothills. The two main mountain ranges are the Apennines, which travel down the middle or the spine of the peninsula, and the Alps, which are on the northern border. Now, what's not covered in mountains or foothills is covered in very fertile plains. Because it's a peninsula, there's only one area, one border, that's connected to land, and that's in the north. However, the land connection is cut off to the rest of Europe by the Alps, a mountain range. Because of this, before Italians developed a lot of seafaring technology, they mostly traded amongst themselves. The story of the Roman Republic starts around 534 BC, when a cruel king named Tarquin the Proud took control of Rome. This is his picture over on the right. The Romans chased the cruel Tarquin out, and a new noble class took power in Rome. They were called the Patricians. They were a wealthy aristocratic class. The Patricians declared Rome a republic. A republic is a word you need to know, and it means a community in which people elect their leaders. Most of Rome's inhabitants, though, were not patricians. They were not wealthy aristocrats. Most were plebeians, which is a word that you need to know. It means members of the lower class. There were many different types of people who were considered plebeians. Plebeians included townspeople, merchants, shopkeepers, small farmers, and laborers. Both patricians and plebeians had the right to vote, but plebeians could not run for public office. When the Romans chased Tarquin the Proud from Rome, and they created the Republic, they organized their government into two branches, an executive branch and a legislative branch. The legislative branch was responsible with coming up with laws and rules for Rome. They were made of two different parts, the Assembly of Centuries and the Senate. The Assembly of Centuries elected leaders to the executive branch, but the Senate was the more powerful of the two parts of the legislative branch because the Senate was made of 300 patrician men who served for life. Once you became part of the Senate, you did not leave until you were dead, which meant that the people serving the Senate had more power. The Senate advised the consuls, who were part of the executive branch. They debated foreign policy, they proposed laws, and they approved contracts. The other part of the Roman Republic's government was the executive branch, and the executive branch was headed by two men called consuls. And consuls were patrician officials who were elected to one-year terms. And they were called consuls because they had to consult with each other before acting or making any major decisions. This is true because either consul could veto the other's decision, and what veto means in Latin is I forbid. They could basically cancel out any action or decision made by just one consul. Sometimes a dictator, a leader whose word was law, was appointed during a crisis to manage Rome, but usually the Roman Republic was headed by two consuls. So if those last two slides were confusing, take a look at this diagram. It shows you the structure of the government of the Roman Republic. There's two main parts, the legislative branch that makes the laws, and the executive branch that enforces the laws. The legislative branch has two parts, the Assembly of Centuries, whose job it is to pick or elect the consuls of the executive branch, and the Senate. Now, if you were elected to the Senate, then you served for life, and it was a very, very powerful position to have in the Roman Republic. And the Senate was made of 300 men, only patricians. The executive branch had two consuls, and these two consuls had to agree together on major decisions before any action could be taken. In the ancient Roman Republic, plebeians could vote for government officials, but they couldn't serve as government officials themselves, and this made the plebeians upset. So, what the plebeians did was, in 494 BC, they refused to fight in the army, which was controlled by patricians, unless the patricians in government would reform or change the government to give the plebeians more power. The patricians needed the plebeians to keep their army strong, so the patricians gave in to most of the plebeian demands. They were frightened about losing their military forces, so they allowed plebeians to elect their own government officials called tribunes, and these tribunes had the right to veto government decisions. Plebeians were also given some rights to write or create laws. As a result of these changes, or reforms, plebeians improved their social standing in the ancient Roman Republic. There was no more enslavement for debt, meaning if you went broke or bankrupt and you owed people money, they could force you to become their slave. With these changes, that practice was made illegal. Also, patricians and plebeians were allowed to marry. One more very important thing to know about the ancient Roman Republic was that they created a written code of law. The code of law was called the 12 Tables, and it was written down so that plebeians and patricians would both be treated the same. Before these 12 tables, or laws, were created, the laws in ancient Rome were unwritten, and they were basically just based on tradition. Oftentimes, laws were unfairly interpreted to be extra harsh on plebeians and light on patricians. Obviously, this made the plebeians upset. So what happened was, in 451 BC, the official laws of Rome were engraved on bronze tablets, and they were placed in the Roman Forum for all to see. These tablets were called the 12 Tables, and they made sure that all free citizens had the same protection and punishments under the law.